Welcome back to a brand new episode of Jori Sports Stories. As always, I'm your host Jori, and I apologize for the delay. But on today's episode, we have a lot to talk about. On today's agenda, we have games 1. No, I already covered game 1, 2, 3, and 4 of the NBA Finals. An overall breakdown of the finals. We covered the NBA coaching carousel, and we discussed what's next for the next of Boston. In the NFL, we discussed the Deandre Hopkins sweepstakes. We discussed more free agents as well as we do a win total and division winner prediction for a division or two. And then on this week's edition of Jori's Timeout session, we address gambling in the NFL, the inevitable split of Skip and Shannon, and more. And as you can tell, we have quite the show planned. So tune in, turn your volume up, and let's get popping. We start off this week in the NBA again. We discuss the NBA Finals. We break down all the games that I've missed, which is 2, 3, and 4 of the series. We do an overall breakdown. We discuss the coaching carousel. And then we discuss Ja Morant's pending punishment. Because we all know it's coming, but what should we expect? We got a lot of ball to talk and others to talk about. So let's get it. Actually, I looked into my notes and I actually have to cover the entire finals starting from game 1. So, buckle up. Buckle up, everybody. So, we're going to go in order. We're going to do a brief recap, and then I'm going to tell you, because if you remember my last episode, I said Nuggets in 5. It looks like Nuggets in 5, but we're going to go through the notes. So, if you remember, Game 1, Denver won 104-93. It was at Denver. For the Heat, bottom line, everybody was off, including playoff Jimmy. They didn't attack the paint. They didn't get to the free throw line. They shot 2 free throws in a playoff game. They didn't necessarily shoot well enough to win that game, Jimmy Butler included. They were clearly too small. So many mismatches, such as Gabe Vincent on Aaron Gordon. Jokic controlled the pace and facilitated the game very efficiently. That's how you lose a game. And all of the role players decide to go cold. I said size would be key in this series. I like to say I was correct. Denver. On to Denver side. Bottom line, this is a 3-headed monster when the shots go in and when Jokic facilitates very well. Jokic got going, shot very efficiently, facilitated the offense very efficiently. Michael Porter Jr., when he's on, he's their 3rd best player. Now, listen to this in a few minutes, because with him, I don't know what's going on, but they're defensively challenged. I do know that. And especially when it comes to rim protection. But they can disrupt, as you can see. As you saw in game 1. They didn't shoot well from 3 either, but they won from 11 points. So that's scary. And Aaron Gordon has been playing out of his mind. Denver took advantage of the obvious mismatches. They kept going on demoralizing runs to keep Miami at bay, and they out-physicaled them. Flat out. Game 2. Miami won 111-108 at Denver. We're going to talk about Denver first. They made a lot of undisciplined mistakes, especially on the defensive end. Michael Porter Jr., I just said his name a few seconds ago. He cannot act like a sulking brat in games like this when his shot isn't falling. He's got to be better on defense. Usually when you're cold, you try to figure out another way to be effective defensively. They have got to make the shots when they're available. Denver has got to play defense at some point. And no sloppy fouls either. They fouled a lot. That was too many undisciplined fouls in game 2 from Denver. Jokic and his assists are key. As far as Miami was involved in game 2, The role players were able to knock down shots. Strus, Bam, Duncan, Robinson, which was really the key. Defensively, they did a little bit better by going big with Kevin Love. Jimmy didn't necessarily play too well as far as shooting is concerned. And I think I'm going to have a little blurb about that at the end of this. But he didn't necessarily need to be because his key players were backing him up, correct? They stretched an already thin Denver defense out in open opportunities. They can't afford to revert further back to they can't afford to revert back to regular season heat at this point because it's looking kind of dangerous for him. Coach Mike Malone, people were like, I don't know why he's so hard on his team. I hear it on the internet all the time. I see it. People do say these things. I don't know why he's so hard. He's like, he always calls them out and whatnot. But he was absolutely correct to call his team out after game 2. He's been doing it all year, especially with uncharacteristic play on the court, such as mental lapses on defense and pouting because somebody's shot is broke at the moment. Yes, that's another shot at Michael Porter Jr. You're going to hear this. I'm going to have my one with him too. But, like, Mike Malone he knows how to motivate this team. So you sensitive idiots over here criticizing him about how he motivates his team because you can't take it. It usually works. I'm telling you, his criticism worked because I got the notes from Game 3. We all saw what happened in Game 3. In fact, let's just get back into it. Because in Game 3, Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic both had a 30-point triple-double. Am I correct? They combined for 66, 31, and 20. What? 66, 31, and 20. Murray was visibly more aggressive. He got going. Role players for Denver definitely stepped up. Aaron Gordon, Christian Brown, they were both out of their minds. Jokic and his facilitating They wore down Miami overtime. It's got to a point where I know when Miami starts to crack. And it does it to, you know what, a team like Denver with that type of depth, and if you don't have much, if you're not stacked like Denver is, it is demoralizing when they can go on stupid runs with just about anybody that they have on the bench or on the court at the same time. Any type of rotation, they can go on a stupid run. That's demoralizing if you think about it. And it's funny because that pick and roll that they have going with Jokic and Murray is proven to be very detrimental to Miami. You know why? Because they can't stop it. And you know why they can't stop it? Because Miami's too small. But the one thing that's really making this kind of like wild to me, it's really wild because the gap is there. I can see the clear talent gap, right? But you already know that Denver is also capable of doing this type of video game shooting that I like to think. Yeah, video game shooting. Yep, that's what it's called, video game shooting. And they haven't turned on video game mode yet, up to this point. Denver has great depth and role players, and they've been playing better defense, especially. And when Denver can be physical and play defense and act like they can stop somebody at the rim, they can put people away, like Christian Brown. Put Miami in the theoretical bed. So when your top two players combined for almost 70 points, and then your next two, if I pull up the stats, I think Aaron Gordon had like 10 or 15, and Christian Brown had like 15. Yeah, no. But when your two players, top two players, outscores your whole starting five, I believe, they did, is an issue. So, compared to game 2, Miami didn't play as well. But Miami also has a clear size disadvantage and a consistency issue. Jimmy can't do it by himself, and they did fight. That game was a battle. Denver has the better team. They have no answers for Jokic. Kevin Love is not a viable matchup. They shot poorly from 3, 11 from 35, but so has Denver. The only thing with Denver is they're going to two-piece you to death. It's because they're big and they can get into the paint, and you can't. And they got out-rebounded miserably, 58-33. That's how you lose a game right there. That famous Pat Riley saying, no rebound, no ring. Getting out-rebounded by 25 points is not how you get a ring. And then we go into Game 4. Okay? Could be considered the Aaron Gordon game. He stepped up both offensively and defensively. He had 27 points. He shot very well. He made his threes. Denver not death can be very destructive. Miami had no answers for Bruce Brown and Aaron Gordon. And Michael Porter Jr. has lost pretty much all confidence in his shot at this point. He ain't the same. I'm not even finna go there with him. But actually, I am. Give me just a second. Jokic got in foul trouble, and they had to sit him for a few minutes, and they still ended up going on a stupid run. And they won by double digits. Jamal Murray wasn't terribly efficient. But one thing I will point out for Miami is that Duncan Robinson did step up to no avail. Michael Porter Jr., as much as I'm about to rip on him in a minute, he did do his damage at the rim. Bruce Brown outplayed Jimmy Butler. Kyle Lowry had his moments again to no avail. KCP gave you quality minutes. And I'm trying to figure out, where was this when you were a Laker? I feel like this game was a death game. And you can conclude that Miami is done. Now, I know we're saying that Jimmy don't have the pieces around him and he's doing it by himself. But he hasn't been playing necessarily too well either. So when are we going to start having this conversation about Jimmy Butler not playing too well in these playoffs? One can say, and we all know what his co-stars are. Bam is inconsistent. He's either there or not. The other ones are just entirely too young and green. So between Jimmy Butler and Michael Porter Jr., I really don't know who more I kind of want to rip into, but I'm thinking with the pieces that Jimmy Butler has on his team, I can't really rip on him for doing it by himself, but I just wanted for it to be out there that he's not playing necessarily too well. He's not a player that he's a good facilitator. But right now, what Miami needs is for him to go and get his and put the team on his back. They're down 3-1. They got to win 4 straight to have a chance. They at least have to win 2. They at least have to win 1 to keep it going. And they did it. And I understand the role that they took to get to the playoffs and everything. I really do completely understand that. But we're going to have some common sense here. They're not playing the Boston Celtics in the finals. They're not playing a team that's going to just fold. They're not playing a team that's very undisciplined. They're not playing a team that's not fundamentally sound. They're not playing one of these weaker teams. They're playing a true number 1 seed. And if we're being honest, this finals is over tomorrow. Monday, yeah. Tomorrow. I'm being completely honest because I don't see unless they fight and the shots start rolling in. And then, like I said earlier, Denver hasn't gone to video game mode yet, and they're still winning by 15 points. So if they get into video game mode, that's a 30-point blowout right there waiting to happen. And I feel like the way that Mike Malone coaches this team, if any type of game they're going to get that type of shooting, it's going to be this one. I want, like, as much as you can ask for an extended series, the probability of that happening is not very great. Because, like I said, you're not playing somebody who's going to choke away a series lead. You're not doing that. You're playing somebody who's superior, who is a flat-out better team than you. They're more fundamentally sound. They don't do undisciplinedness very often. Jokic is arguably one of the best players on the planet right now. Jamal Murray is healthy. He's playing like Bubble Murray for the most part. And they're one of the better fundamentally sound teams in the league. Like I said, they're all great passers. They can all shoot. You just worry about their rim defense and some type of defense on the perimeter. But that is a complete team. That's why I'm like, this series is over. And while I'm talking about Denver, I don't know what's going on with Michael Porter Jr., but it's this reoccurring pattern with him. Like, when his shots go in, you get the best version of him ever. But when he's cold, he becomes virtually unplayable. So, I don't want to kind of chalk it up to softness, but like I said, in Game 4 and in Game 3, when his shots weren't falling, he did get his at the rim when it was wide open. But you saw it when he went cold. His whole body language just went numb. And yeah, he was just sulking and pouting, acting like a brat. I'm like, this is not the game you want to act like a brat. If you're just so upset that your shots weren't falling, go do something else on the defense, and it'll turn into offense eventually. Like, you too big for that. To be doing all of that in arguably one of the biggest games in your life, you're too big for that. Toughen up and quit crying. Next, I want to talk about the coaching thing. So, Toronto has their new head coach, former Memphis Grizzlies assistant Darko Rajakovic. Yeah. I hope he does well. There are no more coaching vacancies. I think the NBA just discarded Doc Rivers. I feel like they just told Doc Rivers that it's time to go be a family man. Now, we're going to talk about Ja and his punishment. Now, I don't understand why people are saying he shouldn't be suspended because he didn't do nothing wrong versus legalities and whatnot. It's not about the Second Amendment at this point. He didn't break the law. He's representing somebody, and they don't want nobody flashing a gun on their image. He has to go through those type of consequences for repeated behavior. He sat up there and deceived Adam Silver. He's got to face the consequences. Y'all can't keep defending and condoning this type of behavior. And then, to follow it up, I was going to talk about this in Jori Sports Stories. This is Jori Sports Stories. Jori's timeout session. You guys know what I meant. And then you want to try to put up this rumor to play us like we're stupid. No. I hate when famous people like to play the general public like we're just dumb and full of rocks. We're not. We all know that Ja is probably going to look at 25 to 30 games. Maybe a little bit more. I know that Adam Silver is going to break the hammer. Come down on him. Because he was just in his office saying he wasn't going to do it again. And then to come out with some stupid apology talking about this is a journey and da-da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, grow up. And we'll get on that excuse in just a second. Because the excuse was the so-called rumor from Jaws. Somebody in Jaws' camp said that it was a fake gun. That it was a fake gun that was handed to him from the back seat. But like I said, I don't like when people like to play the public like we're genuinely stupid. So that's the stupid stuff that's what you want us to believe. That's really what you want us to believe. Okay. So riddle me this. What kind of a grown man flashes a toy gun while bopping around an NBA YoungBoy? A grown man flashing a toy gun. If it was a toy gun, why'd the friend hide the phone so fast, huh? If it was a toy gun, why would you say that in the first place instead of issuing that apology? Why would you even pull anything else out of your pocket while vibing at this point? Why can't we just vibe and bob to NBA YoungBoy without doing all of the pulling stuff out of our pockets? And I'm glad that car wasn't moving when he was flashing that gun. Because that's even more dangerous. This is a pathetic attempt to avoid accountability. And I'm glad that stupid excuse stayed in-house when it should have. Because it's embarrassing. Whoever's in John's camp needs to know that nobody's buying that BS because it's horse crap. And they need to get a grip on reality. Quit lying to yourself. Because you're delusional if you think anybody's believing that type of stuff. Because why would you hand him a toy gun from the back seat so him to flash it on camera? You make me think, like, when you say that, it's like, oh, it's planned. But we all know it wasn't planned because the friend hit the phone, tried to hide the camera. We're not stupid. Some of us has more common sense than a bag of rocks. And it ain't y'all who came up with that one. Jesus. And now we head to the NFL to talk more about the Deandre Hopkins sweepstakes and more free agents. We'll also be doing a win total and win division winner prediction for a division today. We plan on having a little bit of fun in this segment, so tune in again. All right. So, we're going to start with the Deandre Hopkins sweepstakes. Some of the biggest questions, like who realistically has a chance, who's already deemed out, and what's the best fit. One second. Realistic chances. When I talk about realistic chances, I'm talking about who has the cap, the quarterback, and the defense that will satisfy Deandre Hopkins. Remember, he's been in dysfunction for most of his career. Also includes those who would clear up cap space. Who could. Yeah. So, he'd be good with the Browns. He'd be good with the Texans going back. If Baltimore could make room, he'd be a good Raven. If my team wanted, like, even though personally, as a Titans fan, even though I see a fit there, he's familiar with some of our coaching staff. I'm not into the whole old washed up receivers because Julio traumatized me and he was one of my favorites. But I'm looking at this situation as different. D-Hop is healthy. And he can still, we know for a fact, he's still D-Hop. So, let's make that work. Or Buffalo could be a realistic place for DeAndre Hopkins to end up at. The best fit, like I said, Browns, Texans, my team, Ravens. Any team with a decent enough quarterback and a very good defense. And who has cap space to free up if they don't need it for any other things. Already out, I got the likes of Kansas City. I don't think they're going to be in the DeAndre Hopkins running. I don't think Buffalo is. But here's updates on this type of situation. He has a visit scheduled to Tennessee. He did. He went to Tennessee Sunday, which is today. And he probably won't sign closer until training camp. Free agency. Let's talk about some free agencies. Former Minnesota running back Dalvin Cook has hit the market. He only hit the market because he can't stay healthy. That's the only reason why. He's borderline. I believe he's been a top 10 running back for the past 4 or 5 years. So the only reason why he's on the market is he can't stay healthy. A former Chief, Frank Clark, has signed with the division rival Broncos. He feels like that's a good fit for him. I'm so glad he got him a spot on the roster. He deserves to be on the roster. He's very talented. Minnesota is also fielding calls for defensive player Danielle Hunter. I believe with Minnesota, because they're so flush to the cap, I believe, they might be, whatever Super Bowl window Minnesota had is probably closed. Because I feel like this team is pretty much on the verge of rebuilding. Because how many times are they going to trust Kirk Cousins? All right. Cowboys release career screw-up Antonio Callaway. Like I said, DeAndre Hopkins is scheduled to meet with the Titans today. We'll be meeting with New England soon after this. But he has familiarity with Tim Kelly and Vrabel. So, something to look out for. And some preseason predictions. Today's division, we're going to go into the AFC West. So, first, the Las Vegas Raiders. I feel like they're going to be last. Listen, somebody's got to be last. And I feel like they might finish with a losing record. Like 4-13 losing. You know why? Why? Because the teams in their division have improved in the offseason, including Denver, because they're keeping their receivers. So we're just going to chalk up last year to Russ looking like some stir fry to Nathaniel Hackett. I'll give Russ a clean slate. He has somebody who knows what he's doing, calling plays and doing stuff like that. So I will give Russell Wilson a clean slate for this year. Last year, he still played like dog crap. So we're not... Just to be clear. So the other teams in their division has improved in the offseason, such as Denver and Kansas City. And the Chargers are a better team. And then, hold on 1 second. And Kansas City isn't going anywhere. And they have a new quarterback, a new system, and that plays a significant role in how successful that you are as a team. And if I look at the schedule, because I feel like right off bat, you got the Broncos and the Bills. You could easily be 0-2 by the time you even get a winnable game versus the Steelers. Then you got the Chargers. That's either there, here, or there. The Packers. I feel like that's a win. The Patriots. That's either here or there. The Bears could be a win. The Lions are better than what people think. Well, we all aren't sleep on the Lions anymore. The Lions are a good team. First time in a minute I can say that. I don't know where the Giants are, so that's a flip-flop game. The Jets, I feel like they're going to lose that because of Aaron Rodgers. The Dolphins. The Chiefs. The Vikings. Now, if they win any of those games right there, it's going to be that Vikings game. Then you got the Chargers again, the Raiders. I'm talking about the Raiders. The Chargers again, the Chiefs again, the Colts, and the Broncos. So, and I feel like they're going to win against the Colts. So, I feel like they could win a solid 4 to 5 games. In all honesty. Because who knows if Jimmy G is going to be completely healthy. You got Josh Jacobs. Did you do anything worthwhile on defense? You traded away Darren Waller. Raiders is what Raiders are. Next, we got the Chargers. And I'll probably pull up their schedule in just a second. But I have them going second in the AFC West. I feel like they might be a little bit better. But I still feel like they could win like 9 to 10 games. Maybe 11. Who knows? Hold on. Let me pull up their schedule. But why? They've got a pretty brutal schedule with... Well, when I did look at their schedule, they had the Bills, Broncos, and Chiefs all being back to back to back. And if the Bills are completely healthy, and they are what we're supposed to think that they are, that's brutal. So they start with the Dolphins. I feel like they could win that. I feel like my Titans will beat the Chargers. They'll win against the Vikings. I feel like they'll win against the Raiders. They'll lose against the Cowboys. Chiefs, Bears, Jets. Loss, win, loss. Lions, Packers, Ravens. Toss up, win, toss up. Like that Ravens game is going to be a very interesting game, I feel like, for seeding purposes, I feel. Just making a small, like a little prediction. Patriots, Broncos, Raiders. Winnable, debatable, and that's winnable. Broncos, Bills, Broncos, Chiefs. If they get into a playoff spot, they could go on the playoff. I could predict that they could go to a playoff spot on a 3-game losing streak. But like I said, and if you think about the Chargers, they also have a new offensive coordinator, so could shake something up. They could struggle a little bit. They could get it together, but that's worth to note too. And the Broncos, I have being third, even though I have them at least winning 10 games. Why? Well, I think they learned from last year about giving the Broncos a really hard, brutal schedule. Well, last year was predicated on Russell Wilson actually being worth 2 pennies. But I feel like they could win 10, 11, 12 games. I think division play will be where it kind of gets tricky. They have winnable games in a favorable schedule. Listen. So they play the Raiders first, which I feel like is winnable. Commanders is winnable. Broncos, they could lose. The Dolphins, they could lose to. The Bears is winnable. The Jets, that's going to be a slugfest. The Chiefs is going to be a slugfest if Russell Wilson plays better. The Packers, I feel like that's winnable. Chiefs is another slugfest. The Bills, that's a slugfest. Vikings is a winnable game. Browns, I don't know, because I don't know what they're going to look like. The Texans, that's winnable. Chargers, that's winnable. Lions, I don't know, because the Lions are getting better. Defensively, they're better than what they were. The Patriots, that's winnable. And then they have the Chargers and the Raiders. I don't know why I keep saying the Broncos. It's because keep seeing it first. But they have the Chargers and the Raiders. Which depends on how they're looking. Could be winnable and it could be a slugfest. So it's like I said, I feel like division play will be where it gets kind of tricky. They'll have winnable games in a favorable schedule. And then we go to the Chiefs, who I have at first in the AFC West. I feel like they can win about 12 games. 13 games, right? But they aren't invincible. They do have some games where I have them losing, like versus Cincy and versus Philly. And you gotta account that if they come out slow, they're gonna drop some games. And they're gonna stink it up. They're good at doing a thing where they stink it up for half the season and then go on a Super Bowl run. So you got to account for them stinking it up in a random game or two. So that's why I have them at 12 or 5. And their schedule is not necessarily hard either. Let's just break that down since I did the other 3. Because why not at this point? But one second. But I feel like they're going to beat the Lions. I feel like they're going to beat the Jaguars. They're going to beat the Bears. The Jets is a toss-up. They're going to beat the Vikings. The Broncos is a toss-up. They're going to beat the Chargers. The Broncos is another toss-up. The Dolphins is another toss-up. They could lose to the Eagles. I don't know how they're going to play against the Raiders, but I feel like that's a winnable game. They're going to beat the Packers. The Bills game is going to be a very good game. Then they have the Patriots. Then the Raiders again. Then the Bengals. Like I said, they have some team. That schedule isn't easy, but it isn't the hardest thing in the world either. I can account for them stinking it up in a random game. Or one of these teams being very much better than the Chiefs and just coming in and kicking their tail. Which I would love to see, by the way. Not gonna lie. And I don't want to move on without also putting out there that Jerry Jones has not completely ruled out the possibility of bringing Ezekiel Elliott back for the Cowboys. And Dalvin Cook, who was released, has interest from Miami and others. So, this could get a little bit interesting. I don't think... Well, because who else is going to want Zeke? He's declined every year. He's not that guy anymore. So, if Dallas don't take him back, ain't nobody else going to take him at this point. They'll take Dalvin over... I'll take Dalvin over Zeke. At this point. And now for this week's edition of Jori's Timeout Session. And on this week, we got to discuss something that's becoming an issue, gambling in the NFL. And I give my input on the split between Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharpe, and more. It'll be thoughtful. It'll be a thoughtful and an insightful segment. So without much more, let's get into it. All right. So, first on Jori's timeout session, we're going to talk about something that's been a little bit more of an alarming pattern, and it's kind of concerning. But we're going to talk about gambling in the NFL, because there's like an issue with this gambling in the NFL that just leaves so many questions to me, because it's crystal clear that almost nobody learned from Calvin Ridley. There's been 2 other instances of gambling and an incoming crackdown. Jameson Williams got 6 games. A few others were suspended indefinitely. And Isaiah Rodgers is reportedly facing a lifetime ban. And one thing I'm kind of figuring out is, like, if all these players claim to not know and not understand the gambling policy, which if you ask me, because how they're reacting to this stuff, there is no gambling. I'm understanding that the gambling policy is you are not to gamble at all, not near the practice facility, not near the parking lot, not on a bus or a plane or in a stadium. And gambling apps, they track your location. So that's how they get you. So if I just want to understand, if there's a zero tolerance for gambling, why are y'all gambling if you claim to not know? And if you ask anybody in the general public, the policy is pretty much straightforward. What's the issue? Is it the verbiage? Who's getting these people ready for the lifestyle switch? We got to cut all this stupidity out, because it's stupid. And Isaiah Rodgers, he knows he might not ever play in the NFL again because of the magnitude of his gambling issues. $20 here, $50 there, $100 there, $30 there. Yeah. And then they keep tracking you. They know where those bets were made. So, and then, if you look at the details of it, Mr. Rodgers, he was betting with the team that he played in the facility. And, hold on. Let me pull that up, because I feel like that's something I need to read. Because from what I'm understanding, Jameson Williams, he wasn't betting on football, and he wasn't betting on football or anything. That's why he only got 6 games. Mr. Rodgers, if you get suspended indefinitely, you're going to get it. You're going to get it. It's because you bet on football games. Colts cornerback Isaiah Rodgers called his hundreds of bets for some of involved the team he plays for were allegedly funneled through an account without his name on it to avoid detection. He called it an error in judgment. That's not an error in judgment. That's BS right there. You knew exactly what you were doing because you were trying to cover it up. You can use the wrong name that you want to, but they know exactly where it's coming from because they got your location. You have to allow these type of apps to use your location, or you can't gamble on those apps, right? That's from my understanding, an error in judgment. He knowingly went through a process of using an app, not putting your name on it. You were smart enough to not to use your real name on it. And you got caught and you called it an error in judgment. It wasn't an error in judgment when you were thinking you were it was not an error in judgment when you were thinking you were getting away with it. So it's not an error in judgment now. It's a bad choice. It's a stupid choice. Let's just call it what it is here. Like, why are we hustling backwards? If you're making millions of dollars and you can't bet $15 to $20, you're acting like it's going to kill you guys. Like, come on now. It's not going to kill you guys to not bet. Like, chill out. Because you guys are throwing away opportunities that I wish that I had. Like, stop being stupid. Stop doing dumb stuff. And I should have did this in the NFL segment, but I thought I had a lot to talk about in there. But we're going to do my top 10 running backs. These are not in any particular order before anybody gets in their feelings. I have Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, Nick Chubb, Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, Aaron Jones, Dalvin Cook, who is a free agent, Tony Pollard. My honorable mentions, I have Travis Etienne. Lord, I can't speak today. Miles Sanders, Tyler Algier, and Jamal Williams. Let me know if you agree or disagree. I'm willing to have a discussion. Just don't be twisting up my words. I don't like that. And before we end today's show, I gotta address the Zion stuff because this is just so unbelievably Jesus. So, you gotta give it to Mr. Zion Williamson. He was putting some work in. Not the right work, apparently. But here's the thing. He ain't no slick pimp, though. He just got a lot of money. He's young with his head up his own rear. And he doesn't realize he's a target. Or he could just be a big old freak. Both could be true. But nonetheless, congrats to him for announcing his baby. It went straight to hell after that. Miss Mariah Mills decided to go on a 3-day Twitter expose because she's upset that apparently Zion has been two-timing. And then another girl also came out with receipts. Now, rightfully speaking, don't you do it. Once again, now rightfully speaking, if I'm Zion, I'm considering all options, but who knows? But I will say is that she really embarrassed herself for what? Both of y'all look stupid. That went on Twitter exposing this man. Both of y'all look stupid. And for her to keep that crap up for 3 days, she kept going and she kept going and she kept going. And it was like, dang, do you shut up? Like, will you stop? That's why I'm saying, like, that's harassment at this point. That's why I'm saying explore all options. But, homegirl, do better. Go heal. Touch grass. You will survive. And Zion, in all honesty, I think you need to move a little different. Learn how to be a pimp. Because you had plans to have everybody in New Orleans and you didn't think that nobody was going to find out. You were trying to run a harem. Let's just have it like that. Move a little different. Keep it player. Learn your lesson and move on from this travesty because this was an embarrassment on everybody. Such a joyous occasion turned into a hot mess because people got upset. But at the same time, you knew what you were doing, so you kind of put this on yourself. And if I really went into what I really thought about this situation, boy, I'd ruffle some feathers. I ain't even in the mood to ruffle feathers today. Because if I ruffle feathers, I'm going to pluck them. So, I'm going to leave it at that. Once again, before I get out of here, you need to address the breakup of Skip and Shannon. Because apparently that's going to end very soon. Uncle Shannon is going to do his big thing. I know he's going to do his big one. But who wants to work with Skip Bayless? Because, quite frankly, most people I know watch because of Shannon. He would speak facts, and it was very interesting about how this whole breakup thing occurred. One, Shannon got a buyout from Fox, but he has his own podcast. He's probably gonna go do his own thing. He has a very good rapport with people, other than the people that he's beefing with. Skip is a legend in sports journalism. I will give him credit for that. But as of lately, and from what I understand about this breakup is like the disrespect, how he disrespected Shannon Sharpe's career because of Tom Brady. And Shannon showed so much poise and elegance. And it was also about creative control as well. So it was like, all Skip wants to do is talk about the Cowboys and Baker Mayfield and LeBron and hate on LeBron all the time. And that gets tiring. I understand. That wears on people. It is absolutely okay to be tired of talking about the same thing over and over and over again. That is why when I get tired of repeating myself, especially when I'm making the same point to people who don't listen, I just stop talking because I'm like, you're not listening. If I'm proving your opinion wrong, why are you not listening? And I understand that opinions are like buttholes, everybody has one, but yeah. If I can prove your opinion wrong, that's a fact, ain't it? It doesn't make an opinion anymore. It's a fact. If I can prove it wrong, what I'm saying is a fact, right? So, I understand Shannon not wanting to keep going, telling Skip Bayless that Dak Prescott is average, Baker Mayfield will never be what he was supposed to be, and that the Cowboys will do Cowboy things. He's tired of that and trying to plead LeBron's case. Like LeBron don't have 4 championships and ain't been to 10 or 11 of them. LeBron resume speaks for himself. Skip is the only person that refuses to pretty much see it. What Braun does speaks for itself. What Baker Mayfield is, what it is. Dak Prescott is a complimentary quarterback. He's not an elite quarterback. He's not one of those type of quarterbacks. Skip knows this. As a self-proclaimed Dallas Cowboy cheerleader. So I feel like for the direction of the show, it was needed because Shannon, once again, probably got tired of talking about the same stuff, and he always got pushback, and he probably got pushback when it comes to creative control. And it's not fun anymore if you keep talking about the same stuff over and over again, and it's not fun anymore if the person across from you just refuses to see common sense. It doesn't be fun anymore. It's redundant and it's stupid. So I agree. I kind of understand that type of part. In all honesty, I wish them both well. I definitely wish Shannon well on his new endeavors because he has I listen to Shannon's podcast from time to time and I love it. 10-10 here. But yeah, so and then they've been trying to put people with Skip Bayless because he's gonna have to figure this out for a minute. They're trying to put Shady with Bayless. I'm like, you want LaShawn McCoy with Skip Bayless, a former Eagles player with a Cowboys cheerleader. That's great TV. That is such great TV if you want to lose ratings. Because Shady, I'm in the water about Shady. I mean, I'm kind of lukewarm. He has some dumb takes, but he has some good ones too. Or Nick Wright and Skip Bayless. I don't see that happening because I feel like Speak for Yourself is its own show. They don't need to mess with that kind of chemistry. But they have to figure out somebody who's going to argue with Skip Bayless. Because as funny as it would be, Skip Bayless can't argue with himself. Even though I don't think he deserves the chance to argue with somebody else. Because he says so much down, low, disrespectful, degrading stuff about other people. I don't think he needs to argue with anybody else, in all honesty. But that's neither here or there. Y'all know the drill. We've reached the conclusion of this week's edition of Jori Sports Stories. And as always, I'm your host, Jori. And I want to thank you all for tuning in and listening. Once again, I apologize for the delay. Life has been lifing. But if you're new here and you liked what you heard, be sure to follow and share the podcast. If you're listening via YouTube, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Join us next week as we continue NBA Finals coverage, WNBA coverage, and more. So thank you guys for tuning in today, and I'll see you all next week.